Goloduharam Gauranga Guditama Gopyara Kolpa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachila Jachiya Dile Kakola Kahe Premananda Emona Gauranga Hridoya Dariya Bola Bhaja Gauranga Kaha Gauranga Laha Gaurangera Namare Jai Jana Gauranga Bhaje Se Hoyamara Prana Re Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema Bhidana Parama Pumata Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madgavirapi Gopalan Srikuryat Kripaya Jadi Tadaiva Sambhaya Pitva Rishi Yustat Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunathapta Brajabala Bapahimam Vancha Kalpatarubhischa Kripa Sindhu Bhyaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Krishna Namamrita Bharshi Bhaktra Chandra Prabhadvasta Tamo Baraya Gauranga Deva Anucharaya Namo Namah Srila Narottamaya. Again and again I offer my obeisances unto Srila Narottam Das Thakur. He's indeed a true follower of Lord Gauranga Dev. The nectarian shower of the holy name radiating from the moon of his mouth destroys the darkness of ignorance. Hare Krishna. So nice to see everybody today. Who else is here? I have a feeling that we may not see Leela Purushottam Prabhu and some of the devotees there because they're on yatra right now in Govardhan. So
Yeah, sure.
my apologies for not being real steady the last few weeks of things. We had so many parikramas and things going on. So this is again, there's two different systems of Prema-bhakti-candrika, at least two different manuscripts. In one, this is today will be on text number 3, the 8th chapter, which is called Nishta Bhakti, or Fixed Firm Devotional Service. Let's look at our previous verse here, and then we'll go on to today's verse. And just incidentally for everybody here, I've been contemplating, we have another, I don't know, 50 or so verses left in Prema-bhakti-candrika, so it's not an issue right now, but I'm contemplating what we want to go on to after this. And Achyuta Pram Prabhu suggested, after attending one of our classes on Govardhan Basapartana Dasakam, that I should do that, which sounds nice to me. Because I want, actually, Burijan Prabhu suggested I make a book about Prem Bhakti, about Govardhan Basapartana Dasakam, And that would be nice if we could do that completely. So I'm kind of inclined for that. And maybe after that or before that, we're thinking about either Madhurya Kadambini and or Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Probably all three, but in different times. So let's look at the previous verse. Is that on the board? No, it's not. Radha Krishna Dhun Prema Lakshabana Jena Hema Jahada Hilole Rasa Sindhu Chakura Noyana Prema Kamarati Kore Dhyana Piriti Sukera Dunhe Bandhu. So the previous verse spoke about the love of Radha and Krishna and how it's like Lakshabana Jena Hema, like Hema, like gold, which has been purified thousands and thousands of times. And we spoke something about the importance and significance of that. Because when we read a book, if we don't read the book and try to understand what is the message for me in the book, then it becomes theoretical. Uh, it doesn't touch our heart. And it can just, if we become expert in the book, then generally it just leads to pride and some kind of false idea. We don't really understand it in a deep way. So Narottam Das Thakur was empowered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to give us these verses, and they're important, even though we may sometimes in our ISKCON family feel a little uncomfortable hearing about prema. I mean, is that bona fide? And what to speak of today, we're going to hear about Srimati Radharani. So he spoke in his previous verse about the love of Radha and Krishna. I'll read the translation again. The love of Radha and Krishna is purer than gold melted 100,000 times, and this love makes high waves in the ocean of rasa. O Radha Krishna, your Chakora bird-like eyes relish the sweet nectar of each other's moon-like faces, and Kama and Cup and Rati constantly meditate on this, desiring to attain this ecstatic love. In this way, you always nourish each other's loving happiness. So let's go on to today's verse then. Mhm. Radhika prayasi bada Bhamadike manohara kanaka keshara kanti dare Anurage rakta sadi Nilapata manohari Manimoya abarana pori. Golden complexion, Sri Radha is the topmost and the dearmost. She is most enchanting and seated on the left side of Sri Krishna. She wears a red sari out of intense attachment and puts on a blue shawl on top of that sari. She's beautifully decorated with jeweled ornaments. And reading from a translation of Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, Sri Radhika wears a red colored sari. That was the translation. Huh. Uh, Undergarments. It can't be. I didn't look in the Sanskrit of this. I'm sorry. I should have. Due to her intense attachment for Krishna, and puts on a blue shawl which resembles Krishna on top of her red sari. Because intense attachment is an internal matter, she wears a red sari as internal garment. Gora Graganya Gana Gocha Goloru Haram Goranga Guritama Gopyata Kolpa Briksham Gopalagadaratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshikavaram Satatam Namami. So this verse today, Narottam Das Thakur is speaking about the importance of Srimati Radharani. Uh, I remember I often tell this story, so please forgive me if some of you heard this before, but I remember the first time I ever came in touch with Srila Prabhupada's books. I was a young boy, maybe 10 years old, 11 years old. It was 1970 or 1971 in America, in Denver, Colorado, in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And I'd gone into an old abandoned house that some hippies or someone had put some pictures from Krishna book on the wall. And I was interested in different religions and philosophy and Eastern things. And I was looking at those pictures and I could understand that this was supposed to be God. I could understand that much, but I just couldn't figure it out. It just meant nothing to me. You know, who's this blue boy and all these girls and the cow and this and that. Of course, that's coming from a Western perspective, but still without some conception, what do we do with Radharani? So we want to speak something about that today, and we want to focus something. This verse mentions several points, some of which are so deep and would it takes such an amount of time, it makes me a little uncertain. Um, this translation is okay, but it could be a little better. Radhika Prayasi Bhara, okay. Radharani is most dear to Krishna. Let's go ahead and put this on the board again. The devotees can follow. Uh, Bhama Diki Manohar, she's on the left side of Krishna. She's she has Bhamya Bhav. Her mood is a leftist. Huh? And this Bhara this greatness can also go with this word Kanaka, Kanaka Keshri Kanti Dadi, that Srimati Radharani, she has this golden colored form. It's the most golden colored form, and it's a very important thing. She possesses this. So these colors are very, very important. In the translation here, it doesn't really explain that so much. Um, we'll see. My grandma speaks about the importance of understanding the golden complexion of Srimati Radharani because that's the color of Madhanakya Mahabhav, the topmost ecstasy of love. And Srimati Radharani is Madhanakya Mahabhava Moyi. So this is one point, or 2 points here. Radhika Prayasi Bhada. She's the most dear to Krishna. She has this golden complexion. Anuraktas Raktasadi, Anuraga Raktasadi. She wears a reddish colored. Prabhupada maybe we'll go down this verse later. Prabhupada speaks about this in Chaitanya Charitamrita, as I recall, and he translates it as pinkish. Okay. Anurag, we more oftentimes is translated in English as saffron. It's the color of the rising sun. Nilapati Manohari, and she wears this blue colored outer dress, which is Manohari, very, very enchanting. Mani Moya Abharana Pari, and she wears these amazing ornaments. So these are the different elements in this discussion today. Why Radharani is the dearmost? What is her position as that? How she's a left-wing gopi. I don't know if we'll go to that so much. There's many, many things here. And how Radharani has this Manohara Kanaka. She has Manohara Kanaka Kanti, this golden complexion, which is very, very enchanting and bewitching for Krishna. And how she wears this reddish underskirt and a bluish outer skirt, and the nature of her ornaments. And again, what do these things have to do with us? So let's dive into it. First of all, I'd like to share with you a couple short things from Srila Prabhupada. Um, Maybe actually it might be nice if somebody wanted to read. Is anybody willing to read something here? Raise your hand.
I'll read.
Okay. Anurag, why don't you read the first one? And who was the second voice I heard? Was that Krishna Kun or Amrita Leela? Who
Yeah,
was it? Krishna.
Krishna Kumar Vidasi.
So Anurag, Prabhu, why don't you read the first one to us? Srila.
Yes, okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Krishna. Thank you. Position of Radha. Srila Prabhupada on Radha, purport to Bhagavatam 3.13.38. The Lord is the Supreme Person, the Supreme Male. As a common male wants to be attracted by a female, that propensity similarly exists in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He also wants to be attracted by the beautiful features of a woman. Now the question is, if he wants to be captivated by such worldly, womanly attraction, would he be attracted by any material woman? It is not possible. Even persons who are in this material existence can give up womanly attraction if they are attracted by the Supreme Brahman. This material attraction therefore certainly cannot attract the Supreme Lord. When he wants to
Oh, I'm sorry. Um, to be attracted by a woman. What happened here? I don't know.
when he wants to be attracted by a woman, he has to create such a woman from his own energy. That woman is Radharani.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. So, Prabhupada is speaking in a very simple way. This is, in this purport, he speaks about Radha Das Thakur also. But he's speaking about just there's a propensity. There's Prakriti and Purush, there's yin and yang. There's always a male and female energy. And that goes all the way up to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is Krishna. This is Srimati Radharani. Krishna Kun, do you want to read the second one? This purport to Adi Lila, chapter 4.
Srimati Radharani is as fully spiritual as Krishna. No one should consider her to be material. She is definitely not like the conditioned souls who have material bodies, gross and subtle, covered by the material senses. She is all spiritual, and both her body and her mind are of the same spiritual embodiment. Interesting word. Because her body is spiritual, her senses are also spiritual. Thus, her body, mind, and senses fully shine in love of Krishna. She is the personified Hladini Shakti, the pleasure-giving energy of the Lord's internal potency, and therefore she is the only source of enjoyment for Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna cannot enjoy anything that is internally different from him. Therefore, Radha and Sri Krishna are identical. The Sandhini portion of Sri Krishna's internal potency has manifested the all-attractive form of Sri Krishna, and the same internal potency in the Hladini feature has presented Srimati Radharani, who is the attraction for the all-attractive. No one can match Srimati Radharani in the transcendental pastimes of Sri Krishna.
Just a little recent things. We gave a talk a few days ago, and some of you may be aware, at IIT University in Bhubaneswar. IIT University is a leading university in India. And I'm not used to speaking to those particular college students. And for me, always, I'd like to know who I'm speaking to and have some understanding of them before I can really connect with them. And so I decided before I went there that I would speak about Radharani. And Riseshwar Gopal Prabhu was a little like, my God, Prabhu, what do you... And not only did we speak about Radharani, but we spoke about her in a way that most devotees in our society would find to be kind of a bit postgraduate. But I thought it was good. And what we did is we spoke of, I did that. I explained to him later because if you go to Delhi today, in fact, you go anywhere. We walk around in Puri and there's so many people say Radhe, Radhe. I'm coming off the subway in Kolkata a few years ago and some man came, Radhe, Radhe. Wherever you go, and in Delhi and UP, you see stickers everywhere, Radhe, Radhe. There's a Radha cult. There's people who are preaching about Radharani, and Radharani's becoming well known. But what a lot of people don't understand, and it's not the subject I want to go into right now, if you're interested in this subject, you could hear a recording of our talk we gave the day before yesterday, I think it was, at Dandabanga. And what is the particular special understanding or position of Dandabanga and the Bhargavi River in connection with Jagannath Puri. And believe it or not, that's a lot about Radharani. And we spoke some about how, just to touch on it, how the conception of Radharani comes really in Orissa. It comes from Sri Damodar Roy Ramananda Sikhi Mahiti and Madhavi Devi, these four most intimate associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And although Radharani is mentioned a lot in Chaitanya Charitamrita and Adi Lila, chapter 3 and 4, chapter 1, not in the pastimes. We don't hear about Mahaprabhu hearing Radha Katha or hearing about the position of Radharani until he comes to Orissa. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya tells him, you've got to meet this personality, Ramananda Roy. And that Madhya chapter 8 of Chaitanya Charitamrita, he expresses so many things to Mahaprabhu about Radharani. And he begins speaking about Vanashram Dharma and surrender and so many different things, bringing all the way up to Sakya Ras and Vatsalya Priti, and finally the Gopis. And the last limit is Srimati Radharani. And that's what Ramananda Roy and Sri Damodar are offering to Mahaprabhu in the Gambhira. So it's a high kind of subject, but it is a relevant subject for us, and we should know something about it. Let's look at a few different verses. I've got so many different verses that I put aside for this discussion today, but I think there's just way too many. But we'll touch on a few. There's some verses from the Naradiya Purana and from Jnanachandra Goswami's Gorgovinda Smarana Archana Padati, which is written here in Jagannath Puri. So this first verse I consider very, very important. Vina Radha Prasadina Krishna Praptina Jayate Tata Shiradika Krishna Smarani Yo Susamyuto. That Vina without Radha, Vina Radha Prasadina, without the mercy of Radha, Krishna Praptina Jayate, you cannot get Krishna. And therefore, Tata, the conclusion is that Shiradika Krishna Smarinyo, we should always think of them together. We should always consider them together. And that has a lot of purport to it. Let's just keep going and try to look back a little bit here and there on this verse today and try to understand what Narottam Das Thakur is speaking to us. So, Krishna, I like this verse from the Brihanardiya Purana. Satyam Satyam Punah Satyam Satyam Eva Punah Punaha Vina Radha Prasadina Mat Prasadana Vijati. Krishna tells us to Nard Muni, and he uses the word Satya, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 times, but then he says Puna Punaha again and again. So Satyam, this is the truth. Satya means the truth. Satya means I vow. Satya means I promise. Satyam Satyam Puna again. Satyam Satyam Eva Puna Puna again and again. I say this. Vina Radha Prasani Namat Prasadana Vijate. That without the mercy of Radharani, my mercy doesn't arise. So we want the mercy of Krishna. We're doing Krishna Bhajan. We do Krishna Bhajan because that pleases Srimati Radharani. Sometimes devotees are confused about this very subtle but very important point, which I'm not going to go into in depth right now. We've done so in some previous sessions. But we want to please Radharani. Our bhajan is not done for our pleasure. The bhajan in our Gaudiya Vaishnava line, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta describes, we were talking recently in some of the parikrama talks we gave, there's 2 types of mentalities. There's the Dham Bhogi, the person who wants to enjoy the Dham, and there's a Dhambasi. We want to be Dhambasis. We want to reside in the Dham. We want to understand the Dham. We want to be a member of the Dham. So we have to give up this Dham-bhogi mentality. And that Dham-bhogi mentality can be subtle also. It can also be that I want mercy, that I want to make advancement, I want to purify my heart, which we should, but we want those things to serve. Because how can I serve with a broken leg? How can I serve with a dirty heart? I have to purify my heart so I can understand the message of Krishna and I can serve properly. But it's not meant for my benefit, my pleasure. So Srimati Radharani is our most worshipable deity. And this is discussed in so many different places in Chaitanya Charitamrita and Madhya Lila chapter 4 especially. There's famous verses there, Devi, Krishnamayi Prokta Radhika Paradevata, that Srimati Radharani, she's Devi Krishnamayi Prokta, she's non-different from Krishna. Radhika Paradeva, therefore she's the most worshipable person. Sarva Lakshmi Mohi Sarva Kanti Samohini Para. She's the source of all the different goddesses of fortune, Sarva Lakshmi Mohi. She's the source of all the different consorts of Krishna. It's a verse from the Brihad Gotamiya Tantra. Um, and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami elaborates on this very nicely in Adila chapter 4. I think I'm going to jump away from those verses right now, and let's go to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's Radhikastakam. Maybe some of you recall a few years ago during Kartik one year, we took this subject of Kaviraj Goswami's Radhika Astakam. This is text number 5. Let's look at it. Rasalasya Gita Narmasakalali Pandita Prema Ramya Rupa Vesasadgunali Mandita Vishvanavya Gopa Yosid Alitopiyadika Mayam Atma Pada Padmandasya Dastu Radhika. So there's a nice poetic translation. In arts like dancing, singing, joking, Radha is by far the best. She shines with endless traits divine, like love and gorgeous form and dress. Among the famous gopis of Vrindavan, she's supremely sweet. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. So Radharani is the best. She's the best, and in particular, in dancing and singing and making jokes. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami gives these different qualities of her love. And again, he's mentioning her form and her dress. And amongst all the famous gopis of Vrindavan, she's supremely sweet. And what do we want from her? May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. So Srimati Radharani is described in a number of different places as the embodiment of Mahabhav. In Madhya Lila chapter 8, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Premera Paramasar Mahabhava Jani, that the sar, or the essence of Premera Parama, the topmost love of God, is Mahabhav. And that Mahabhav, same Mahabhava Rupa Radha Thakurani, Srimati Radharani is the embodiment of that Mahabhav. And therefore, Srimati Radharani is the most worshipable person of all. And Srimati Radharani is glorified in so many different literatures. I'd like to share with you a few verses that I particularly like that maybe not so well known. This is from Srila Jiva Goswami's Gopal Champu. Lakshmi Rabita Sritama Gopyo Lakshmi Tamaha Pratita Radha Gopitama Chid Asha Kava Samarama. Of all the women, Lakshmi Rabita Sritama, among all the chaste ladies, Lakshmi is the best. But amongst Lakshmi Tama, the Uttama of all those Lakshmis, Pratita, is the gopis. Gopyo, Lakshmi Tama, Pratita. And amongst all the gopis, Radha, Gopitaman, Radharani is the best. Kava Samarama, who is there who's like Srimati Radharani? Lakshmi Abhita Sritama, Gopyo Lakshmi Tama Pratita. I'm sorry, I put this verse here twice. So Srimati Radharani is the best of all the different gopis. She's the best of Lakshmi. She's the best of all the different consorts of the Lord. And this is described in so many different places. Let's see here. In Skanda Purana, recently, I know where it was. At Govardhan, we took the devotees to Uddhava Kund, and we were speaking a little from Skanda Purana, and these verses came up. Kalindi speaking. Atmarama Shri Krishna Shadruva Matmasti Radhika Tashadasha Prabhavena Virahosman Samsprishat. That Srimati Radharani, she's Atmaram. And sometimes devotees may wonder, why is Krishna called Atmaram? Krishna is called Atmaram because Radharani is in Krishna's heart. And Kalindi is saying to the queens of Dwarka, who happened to be at that time in Vrindavan, they traveled from Dwarka to Vrindavan after Krishna disappeared. She was explaining why she didn't feel separation from Krishna, because she said, I'm doing service to Srimati Radharani. And because Srimati Radharani, she's in the heart of Krishna, because of that, Krishna's Atmaram, Krishna's self-satisfied, and I'm serving that heart of that self-satisfied Krishna. Therefore, I'm also feeling self-satisfied. Atma tu radhika tasya. Radharani is his own self, his Atma. Tasyaiva Ramanad aso. And therefore, personalities call him Ramana. He's the most self-satisfied person. Atma Ramataya pragyai prochate gudavedi be. Because Krishna takes pleasure in the company and the association of Srimati Radharani. So the verse also speaks something about the complexion of Radharani's cloth. And this is a very interesting subject matter. I'm going to look at this from a few different literatures, but we can start with Chaitanya Charitamrita. We often see Radharani pictured with a blue sari traditionally, but sometimes we may see her with a red sari. And sometimes even we may see Radharani pictured with white color. And there's a purport to each one of those different colors. Let's go ahead and look at some of that. So this is from Madhya chapter 8. This is from the discussion. This is spoken by Ramananda Roy to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna Anuraga Dvitiya Aruna Bhashana. So Srimati Radharani's Anuraga, her attraction for Krishna, is her upper garment. And Prabhupada translates it, Arunabhasana, as pinkish. Again, Arunabhasana, oftentimes it is translated as saffron color. It's pinkish. It's a kind of reddish color. It's the color of the rising sun. Pranayamana, Kanchulikaya Bhaksha Achadana. And then she covers her breasts with another garment, which is composed of her anger and affection and anger towards Krishna. That's her bluish garment, her outer garment. So Srimati Radharani has an undergarment and she has an outer garment. And that undergarment is reddish, and that's the color of Anurag. It's the color of Radharani's deep passion to Krishna. And that's one reason why Krishna likes reddish color. But we don't often always see Radharani dressed in that way. We usually see her with a bluish dress. I spoke some about this in a session a few times back, and we spoke from this song by Srila Jiva Goswami. What is that song called, Krishna Kun? You like that song a lot. Radha Krishna Gatir Mama, that Radha Krishna
Drugalashtaka.
Yugalashtakam.
Yeah, thank you. And so that spoke something about the color of their garments. There's many, many things which speak something about that. I'm not going to go so much into that today, but those colors all have some purport. Sometimes it's said that Radharani is wearing white. Why is she wearing white? When a widow is there, was separated from her husband, she wears a certain uniform kind of thing. And that uniform indicates something. She wears whitish color, which means that she's separated from her husband's gone. And Srimati Radharani adopts that whitish color sometimes when Krishna leaves Vrindavan and she's not with him. And then Radharani's crying and crying in separation. And as we've commented a number of times, she has kumkum on her breasts, and her tears coming in contact with that kumkum washes down into that white color, and it becomes the color of saffron. So another point being made in this verse from Narottam Das Thakur today is about the ornaments of Srimati Radharani. Let's just go ahead and look at some of these verses. This is from Radha Krishna Ganesh Deepika. This is a book which is not so well known amongst the devotees, depending on how literary they are. Most devotees are familiar with the Gaur Ganesh Deepika by Kavi Karnapur, but Rupa Goswami has given us a Radha Krishna Ganesh Deepika, a similar point that it's a book about the Gana, the personalities in Radha Krishna Leela, and it's a Deepika, a light on them. And so in this section verses 200 and so, he speaks some about the ornaments of Srimati Radharani. So would somebody like to read the Sanskrit here? Maybe somebody else can read a translation. Thank you, Seshadev. It's hot. Someone like to read some Sanskrit? Krishna Kund?
I'm here. I'm not sure, but I can try.
Okay.
Tilakam smarayantrakyam haru harimanohara rochano ratnatadanko grihana mukta grana mukta prabhakari. You
Go
want
ahead.
me to read all of them or yeah?
Just keep reading for a bit.
Channa Krishna Pati
Go ahead, read
Chaya
the translation.
Padakam. Oh, Shiratha's tilak is named Smarayantra. Her necklace is Harimanohara. Her jeweled earrings, Tadanka, are called Rochana. The pearl in her nose is called Prabhakari.
So Smara Yantra means that yantra, that mystical uh, lines which make someone remember. Because Krishna's saying Radharani and he's always remembering her tilak, is always remembering her face. Her necklace is Hari Manohar, that thing which attracts Krishna. All of her different ornaments and things, they bewilder Krishna. Keep reading, Krishna Kun.
Channa Krishna Pratichayam Padakam Madanabidam Shyamanta Kanya Paryaya Shankachuda Shiromanihi. The pendant on her chest, Madana, conceals a picture of Sri Krishna within it. Another name of Srimati Shyamandaka jewel is Shankachuda Shiromani.
And this, we could find out more in Rupa Goswami's Lalita Madhav, where he speaks about how Krishna, when he killed Shankachuda, he wanted to give that jewel to Radharani, but Balaram showed up, and Krishna became a little shy in front of Balaram. So he wanted to give it to Radharani, but instead he gave it to Balaram. But Balaram, understanding the mood of Krishna, kind of behind his back, he gave that jewel to Srimati Radharani. And then later, it's a long discussion, which should be very confusing for those of you who haven't read the book and especially heard some things about it. That would be a nice book to do some discussion on. In the Lalita Madhav describes that after Krishna left Vrindavan, Srimati Radharani committed suicide. That's actually mentioned in a number of places. Devotees, I don't want to get into a big thing about this. It's a huge subject, but we have to touch on it. You can't just say Radharani committed suicide. Now let's go on to the next topic. But that's a topic which is mentioned many times. And from a point of view of rasa, from the point of view even of mundane rasa, how can you avoid it? If you have Romeo and Juliet, which generally people consider to be like the topmost love story in the material world, and that ends in suicide because the feelings of the lover and the beloved is so very, very intense, that also is there in Radha and Krishna. Of course, Srimati Radharani has a transcendental body, and there's no question of her committing suicide. She's eternal. But we see also in Mahaprabhu's bhajan, my Guru Maharaj gave one class, the devotees titled it, Mahaprabhu's bhajan is a desire for death. It was not a Sunday feast lecture. That would be a little depressing, perhaps. Although, actually, I gave some Sunday feast lectures speaking about Bhagavad Gita, not Sunday feast exactly, but some talks from new people speaking about suicide in Bhagavad Gita. And they were very fascinated by that subject because suicide is a very, very topical, fascinating thing to end my existence in that. So anyway, when Radha, she drowned herself in the Jamuna, so-called, and then she came out and she was taken by Jamuna Devi to Surya Dev, Jamuna's father, and Radharani is always doing Surya Puja, so she wanted to offer something to him, but she didn't have anything. And then she noticed, oh, I have this jewel, this Shankachuda's jewel in my hand. So she offered that to Surya Dev, and then Surya Dev gave that jewel and Radharani to his devotee, what's his name, Prasanta's brother. What's his name, Krishna Kun? You remember?
Hmm.
Oh,
Um,
the personality in the 10th canto is always criticizing Krishna and Dwarka. And
Pundraka.
no.
No, no, no. They are just always criticizing Krishna.
Yeah, right.
Shishupal Prose.
Shishupal. I don't
No.
know.
And Radharani became known as his daughter. Mhm. or Satyajit is who I'm thinking about. I'm sorry. So
Okay.
she became the daughter of Satyajit, and that Shamantaka jewel was given by Suryadev to Satyajit, and then it became known as a Shaman. That Shankachuta jewel was given to Satyajit, and it became known as a Shamantaka jewel. Okay, that's a little background. Krishna, why don't you read the next one?
Give me a second. Pushpavanto Kshipan Kantya Sobhagya Maniruchate Katakaschata Karava Keyure Manikarbure. A jewel called Sobhagya Mani dangles on Shiratha's chest. By its radiance, it puts to shame even the combined luster of the sun and the moon as they rise together. The golden anklets on her feet are called Chatakaraya.
Rava.
I can't see it. Okay. Chatakarava, because their jingling makes the sound cha-ta-ka. Her armlets are beautified by various colorful somethings
Sorry, various colorful jewels that are called.
that are called Manikarbura.
Yeah. So again, all these different jewels and things, these are all things. The Sobhagya money means that money, that jewel, which is Sobhagya, very, very fortunate. It dangles on Sri Radha's chest because Krishna's thinking, I would like to be on Radharani's chest. And it's interesting to me here, I've been looking for a long time about the meaning of the word Chatak, like Chatak Parvat. And here's another reference, and here's another possible meaning of Chatak. It's that Radharani's feet, the ornaments, the nupura, the ankle bells on her feet are called Chatakarava because their jingling sound makes it sound Chataka. I don't want to go into that right now, but that's something which I've been thinking some about recently. Let's go on to the next verse, Krishna Kun.
Can I ask a question quickly?
Yeah, please.
Does this have anything to do with Chataka birds? Maybe some of the Indian, I don't know,
I
somebody
don't
who's
know. I asked Hari Prabhu that previously, and he said no. So that was his thing. But I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't take that as absolute. He may just be speaking from some perspective, and there may be some grammatical other way around that. I'm not sure. Unless someone else has some other comment on that. Why don't you go ahead, Kund?
Mudranamankitana vipakshamadamardini Kanchi Kanchana Chitrangi Nupure Ratnagopure Madhusudana Marunde Yayo Sinjita Manjari. Shiratha's signet ring is called Vipakshamadamardini. Her waist belt is called Kanchana Chitrangi and her ankle bells are named Ratnagopura. Their jingling stuns even Shri Madhusudan.
In Govinda Lilamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami mentions in one place that when Krishna goes to Vrindavan, suddenly he sees the forest, it all becomes golden, and he becomes very, very ecstatic, and that indicates that Srimati Radharani is there. And then he hears the sound of Radharani's ankle bells, her Nupura, and he thinks it's the sound of swans. And that sound of Radharani's ankle bells is calling for Krishna. So then Rupa Goswami in his Radha Krishna Ganesh Deepika, she goes on in the next verse in text 207 to speak about Radharani's red-colored cloth. So this is what Narottam Das Thakur is speaking about. Krishna Kun, why don't you read this too? Text 207. Vaso Megambaram Nama. Are you there, Kund?
So sorry, I'm muted and reading enthusiastically.
Why don't you read again?
Bhattumegambaram nama kuruvindanibam tata adyam svapriyam abrabham raktam anjam hare priyam. Shiratha wears two types of garments whose names are Megambar and Kuruvindaniba. The former kind is of her favorite color, blue like a cloud. The latter is red. Shri Krishna's favorite color.
So this is Krishna's favorite color. Krishna, Radharani likes a bluish color. Krishna likes a reddish color. He likes that color which is Radharani's undergarments, which is the color of her anuraga, her love for Krishna. So this is what Narottam Das Thakur is speaking about here, and we should meditate on this thing. In the Prema Vilas, which is a book by Nityananda Das, who was a disciple of Janavamata, in chapter 7, we printed some years ago, we translated and printed something from there. It's from a conversation that Mahaprabhu had with Lokanath Goswami in what later became Bangladesh. And he speaks something there about the purport of Radharani's cloth and his own saffron cloth, his own sannyas. Mora angara bharana basana Radha gai. Ilagi nila bastri suka ati pai. He says that Radharani, she wears this nila vastra, this blue colored garments, which is the color of his complexion. And Radharani becomes Sukha Atipai, she becomes very, very happy because of that. Radharani feels like she's being embraced in that way by Krishna. And the similar way, Krishna, as we were hearing previously from Jiva Goswami, Krishna wears a pitambara dhoti. He wears a golden colored dhoti because that reminds him of Radharani. But in separation from him, Amara Vichede Pare Aruna Basana. Radharani wears this saffron-colored dress, which is what Narottam Das Thakur is speaking about in today's verse in Prema-bhakti-candrika. And Apanaki Nija Dasi, she thinks of herself as a Nija Dasi, as the maidservant of Sri Krishna. And he tells Lokanath Goswami that Amara Lagiya Radha Adi Sakigana Virahe Vyakula Hoya Teji Lajivana Amiha Tejiba Pran Tanar Lagiya Se Dasa Hoy Betumi Suni Betakiya. That for me, out of separation from me, Radharani and the gopis have given up their lives. Now I'm going to do the same thing. Because naparayeham nirabadya samyujam swasadu kutyam vibudaya sapiva. Krishna says in the Bhagavatam that he tells the gopis, I don't know how to repay my love for you. So the only way he can repay that yapratiyatu sadhana is for him to feel the same kind of thing that the gopis are feeling. So he says in Dhariba means to adopt or to accept. Dhariba tahara kanti. I'm going to accept Radharani's complexion, that complexion pariba arunabhasana. And that arunabhasana, that saffron-colored cloth, which is a cloth of separation, I'm going to take that, and that way I'll announce to the world, that'll be my uniform, that I'm telling the whole world that I'm the maidservant of Srimati Radharani. That's the purport of Krishna adopting the saffron cloth of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. E lagi aruna basan di bagai. And then wearing that aruna basan, a saffron color, I'm going to start singing. Japi ba tanhara guna kahile tomai. I'm going to sing the glorious qualities of Radharani. Now, how does he do that? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, he says, Jariyama prati snehataki sabakar tabi Krishna vyati rikta nagai biyar. He says, if you really love me, you love my instructions. Don't chant my name. Chant the name of Krishna, because he's in the mood of Radha, and he's not interested in his own well-being, his own glorification. So I'd like to share with you a nice song. This is something, sometimes in the past we were singing this in the mornings in our ashram here. It's by the poet Dina Krishna Das, who's one Padavali poet who lived 300-400 years ago in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Radhe Govinda Jaya Radhe Govinda Radhe Govinda Jai Radhe Thakur Hamari Nanda Kila Thakurani Srimati Radhe. Amrita Leela Mataji, why don't you read the translation?
All right. The gopis sing Radha Govinda Jaya Radhe Govinda, Radhe Govinda, Jaya Radhe. Shri Nandalal is our worshipable Thakur, and Srimati Radhika is our Thakurani.
Vrishabhanu Nandini Srinanda Nandan Shakala Guna Agade Boroshamoy Kale Kokila Kudale Brahmada Hari Guna Gaye. Go ahead.
Vrishabhanu Nandini and Sri Nanda Nandan's virtuous qualities are boundless. Before daybreak, the kokilas shrill from the trees as the bumblebees sing the glories of Hari's wonderful qualities.
This Bora Shamoy Kale, this is this particular time called Bora Shamoy, which is Mangalartik time. Ratan palank pari baitalo duhu jana duhu mukha sundara saje shamir bame navina kishori muchaki muchaki hase.
Upon awakening, Radha Krishna sit up on the jeweled bedstead and display their lovely faces. Radhika sits on Shyama Sundar's left, and her blushing smile befits a young girl.
Pitambada Dora Nila Patadarini Gana Sodamani Saje Shama Siddhi Sikhi Chudabiraje Roy Siddhi Veni Saje. Go ahead.
Krishna's silken garments are bright yellow, and Radha's are deep blue, like a newly formed rain cloud caressed by lightning. Shyama's headpiece is fashioned with peacock feathers, and Radha's curling hair is tied in a braid.
Shama Goli Bona Malaviraje Roy Gali Gajamoti Saje Shama Kore Mohana Murali Viraje Roy Kore Kanchana Saje. Go ahead.
Shyama sports a forest garland, and a necklace of pearls adorns Rai? Oh, Rai's chest.
Roy's
Shyam,
and Radha.
Shyam holds his notorious Mohan Murali, and numerous bracelets and bangles glitter on Radhika's wrists.
We spoke about this recently. Leela Purushottam asked me to say something about Gunjamala. So here's Shama Gali Bhona, Malaviraji, Roy Gali Gajamoti Saji. Radharani is wearing a Gajamoti mala, a garland of pearls, whereas Krishna is wearing a forest garland. In particular, we often hear these wearing a Gunja mala. It's a long discussion. But from Mukta Charit, we understand that Krishna grew pearls in Braj. And then the gopis decided, this Krishna, he's teasing us that we can't grow pearls. We're going to grow our own pearls. So they planted pearl seeds, and it came up with this hingsha lata, which means a very poisonous creeper. Because the gopis, rather, as discussed in this verse today from Narottam, Radharani is Bhama. She's Bhama Bhava Siromani. She's the crest jewel of the leftist gopis. And they have a very angry mood toward Krishna. So they planted this, Krishna planted pearls, which came out very wonderful. And Radharani, she wears those pearls. And this Hingsa Lata, which is described by Raghunath Das Goswami in Mukta Charit, sometimes it's just said that it was a thorny plant. But we learned from Radha Dasi, from Ma at Kusum Sarovar, that that plant is Gunja. And that's why Krishna's wearing that forest garden in particular means that Gunja Mala. Shama koti tate gurgura viraje, roy koti kinkini baje, jugala charane, mani maya nupura, runa juna baje. Go ahead.
Shyama's hips are encircled with jingling bells, and Roy's hips display a kinkini mala. Radha Krishna's decorations are complete with ankle bells of gems that jingle, Runu Junu, from their lotus feet.
So many times I don't know the source of this. It'd be an interesting thing to write a thesis on, to research. Runa Juna, that this expression is found in many different Gaudiya songs, and that that those ankle bells make that sound, Runa Juna, Runa Juna. I don't, it's, I mean, they could have picked any words to express that, but again and again, they use those particular words. So it makes me think there must be something behind it. Saki manjari jata mangala gayota Jai Radhe Govinda Jai Radhe Sundara Badane Anurima Lochana Bankima Charani Saje. Go
In
ahead.
jubilation, the Sakhis and Manjaris sing Jaya Radhe Govinda, Jaya Radhe. Kishori's faces are beautiful, and they cast crooked glances at each other from the corners of their reddish eyes.
Sukha,
Does anybody says crooked glances?
yeah. Bankima, bankima means that it's crooked.
Yeah.
Looking at each other in that way because uh, it has a deep purport to it. It's not so simple. It's crooked because it's illicit. It's parakia. Parakia literally means when someone belongs to someone else. But that parakia, Rupa Goswami explains, is the greatest happiness because in parakia, they seemingly belong to someone else, but they're giving everything to Krishna. And so they're always wanting to glance at each other, but they're doing it out of the corners of their eyes, which are reddish because they haven't been sleeping very much. They've been up all night. Sukha pika sari mayura mayuri kunja bhavan gaje Brishabhanu Nandini Ramani Shiromani Navasaki Gana Maje. Go ahead.
The cuckoos, kokilas, peacocks, parrots, and other forest birds fill the kunja with sonorous tumult. All glories to the daughter of Maharaja Vrishabhanu, the crest jewel of heroines surrounded by her intimate girlfriends.
We'll hear more about this. I think it's maybe the next verse where Narottam Das Thakur speaks about the importance of the gopis. First, he speaks about Radharani and then the gopis, and that's a very important topic. Shri Brindavane Kusuma Kanane Brahmade Radha Guna Gauye Dina Krishna Das Bani Madhura Shri Brindavane Yuga Laki Shorabi Raje. Go ahead.
In this flower kunja of Vrindavan, even the bees sing the glories of Radharani. Sri Dina Krishna Das concludes, thus the divine youthful couple reign within their Madhura abode of Vrindavan.
The very sweet abode of Vrindavan. Huh? So these are important subject matters. We should understand something about Radha and Krishna, what Radharani looks like. Uh, so many things I was thinking to speak about here, but let's just go on. I'd like to tell a little story that my Guru Maharaj tells sometimes. We were hearing recently from what was the name of that book? Raghunath Das Goswami's Braj Bilas Stava, where he speaks about different residents of Vrindavan, and he speaks about Subal and how Subal looks very much like Radharani. And there's a purport. Subal is a Priyanarmasaka. He's a very intimate associate of Radha and Krishna. Unlike some of the other cowherd boys, Subal is able to interact with Radha and Krishna together. And so on one occasion, Krishna was on the bank of the Jamuna, and this is, by the way, this is a very famous story from Vrindavan. And you'll see this dress every year on Gopastami Day in Vrindavan. Radharani, that day, they dress her up like a cowherd boy. And most temples, they show her lotus feet. Krishna Balaram Mandir, I think we stopped doing that in Vrindavan because there's a letter from Srila Prabhupada about that. That's another thing. Anyway, on one occasion, Krishna was sitting on the bank of the Jamuna, crying in separation from Radha, and Subal came there. And Krishna told Subal, hey, Subal, you have to do something. I'm going to die. Somehow you have to bring Radharani here. So Subal said, don't worry, I have a plan. And so Subal went to Javat, where Radharani stays with her so-called mother-in-law Jatila and sister-in-law Kutila and her so-called husband Abhimanyu. And Subal arrived there. Radharani was on the inside. She couldn't come out. and Jatila was sitting on the porch to guard the way so that her daughter-in-law couldn't leave the house. And so Subal came there, and when Jatila saw Subal, she immediately became suspicious. You rascal, you're friends with that rascal Krishna. What do you want? And Subal said, Ma, I lost my calf. I'm trying to find my calf. Maybe the calf wandered into your complex, your place here. Can I go inside and look? Or could you look? And Jatila said, I'm tired. I don't want to move. So Subal said, I'll go in and look. And so then Subal went inside, and he he went to Srimati Radharani and said, Hey Radhe, Krishna's feeling so much separation from you. We have to do this thing. So they exchanged dress. And Radharani dressed up like Subal. Subal dressed up like Radharani. And then Radharani took a baby calf and clutched it to her chest to hide the fact that her upper part of her body doesn't look like Subal's body. And otherwise, their faces look very, very similar. And she took the calf and she imitated Subal's voice and came out and said, Ma, I found the calf. And Jatila said, Okay, now get out of here, you rascal, go away. And so then Radharani went back to Krishna on the bank of the Jamuna, and she decided that she would test Krishna. And Radharani went there and she said, imitating Subal's voice, she said, Oh, Krishna, I'm really sorry, but I failed. I wasn't able to bring Radharani. And then Radharani, dressed like Subal, tells Krishna, but don't worry, I managed to get Chandravali. And Chandravali is Radharani's cousin, who reminds Krishna of Radharani. She looks a lot like Radharani, and sometimes Krishna, when he sees her Chandravali, he becomes bewildered and he just kind of follows along behind her, and then he ends up missing his meeting with Radharani, and he gets in trouble for that. So Radharani, dressed like Subal, she tells Krishna that I wasn't able to get Radha, but don't worry, we're going to bring Chandravali. And then Krishna, he said, no, I don't want Chandravali. I only want Radha. And then Radharani, just like Subal, she smiled very big and she embraced Krishna, and they're very happy. And a little later, Jatila, she called for Radharani. Now, Radharani is with Krishna, and Subal is dressed like Radharani. And Jatila called for Radharani, who's now Subal, and come here. And Subal very nervously came in. And Radharani and Jatila said, I'm very sorry. I'm always treating you very bad. You come sit on my lap. And it'll be okay. And and Subal was very, very much terrified. These are pastimes in Vrindavan. There's so many different discussions about these dresses and about Radharani's uh, ornaments and things. I'd like to finish, though, with a couple of points, one of which is Chaitanya Chandamrita, a verse that my Guru Maharaj often quoted, Yatatata Gora Padara Binde Bindeta Bhaktim Krita Punya Rasi Tatata Totsarpati Hridya Kasmat Radha Padamboja Sudambu Rasi. And the verse describes that if someone gets the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and dedicates himself to Mahaprabhu's lotus feet, to the extent that he does that, then he's able to understand the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani in Vrindavan. It's such a very, very important thing. And that's why there's a famous song by Mahaprabhu's associate Basu Ghosh, Jadi Gora na hoi to tabi ki hoi to Kemone dari tamde Radhara mahima prema rasa singha Jagate jana toke Jadi Gora na hoi to. What if Mahaprabhu hadn't come? Tabi ki hoi to. What would have happened then? Kemoni daritam day. How would we have maintained our lives? How would we stayed in these bodies? Radhar mahima prema rasasima jagate janatoke. The world would never have learned about the glories of Srimati Radharani. Now, to connect this back with the point we were making in the beginning about Mahaprabhu, hearing about Radharani from Shrup Damodar and Roy Ramananda, repeatedly, as we're going to hear more coming up in Prema-bhakti-candrika also. It's in that Tara Bhakta Sangi Sada, the Narottam Das Thakur describes, in that Sangha of devotees, in that Sakhi Gana Sangha, that association of the gopis, that this subject matter appears, that it's an extended subject, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati says in one article we'd like to read from that associates of Sri Chaitanya. He says that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is an extended subject. Radharani is an extended subject. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says if you want to understand Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you have to understand his associates. If you try to approach Mahaprabhu without his associates, you can't understand him. In a similar way, if we try to understand Srimati Radharani without her associates, it's not possible because she's an extended subject. And in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adilita, chapter 4, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he comments that Radhika Prema Guru, that Srimati Radharani is my Prema Guru. So this is a pretty important point. My Guru Maharaj commented on this quite a bit, that he said if you go up the Guru Parampara from one acharya to another, finally you come to Krishna. Then ultimately that parampara begins with Krishna. But Krishna is saying, Radhikara Prema Guru Ami Sishanata, that I'm Radharani is my guru, I'm her disciple, and she's teaching me how to dance. So if we want to enter into this line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, my Guru Maharaj said that we have to understand something about Srimati Radharani. Now, I'd like to change course a little bit. I want to finish here with a couple of verses. I'd like to read some things from Narada Pancharatra and Chaitanya Bhagavat and Manu Sanghita, my favorite book. In the how this, what is the relevance of this to us? Now, one thing that we all know is that in our temples we chant Jai Radhe Govinda, Jai Radha Gopinath. We don't chant Krishna's name first, and this is discussed in the Narada Pancharatra why that is. And let's see, I'll bring this up. Krishna Kum, would you like to read these shlokas and translations?
Okay. Ado samucharedratam paschat Krishnam chamadhavam viparitam yadipatet brahmahatyam labedruvam. First one should utter the name Radha, and then one should utter the name Krishna or Madhava. If one utters the reverse, one gets the result of killing a Brahmana.
Not sure what that means, what it means killing a Brahmin, but Ado, first of all, we chant the name of Radha, and then we chant Krishna or Madhav. Viparitam yadi. Yadi means if. Viparitam means if you do the opposite of that, then you get this bad result. Go ahead, Krishna Kun.
Sri Krishna Jagatam Tato Jagan Mata Charadika Pitu Sadguno Mata Pitu Sadguno Mata Vanya Pud Pitu Sadguno Mata. Nem tudom, hogy ez hol van. Vanya Puja Gariyasi. Pitu Sadguno
Sadguno Mata Vanja Puja Gariyasi.
Shri Krishna is the father of the world and Radhika is the mother. The mother is 100 times more worshipful and higher in point of respect due than the father.
So in the Padma Purana, there's a story about a king who once offended a cow. What he did was that he didn't give the cow any water and the cow died. And so his whole kingdom was cursed by Surabi Devi because that cow is considered to be a representative of Surabi. In a similar way, in Chaitanya Bhagavat, there's a story about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu doing a drama in the house of Buddhimanta Khan. And he invites all the devotees to come. And he takes on the role of the consort of the Lord. And he manifests the form of different consorts as Lakshmi Devi, as Rukmini, as different queens, and as the gopis and Radharani. And all the devotees are completely amazed because it's not exactly a drama, it's real, because the emotions are so real, because that's Mahaprabhu's mood. And then Vrindavan Das Thakur gives this Bengali verse. He said, Jata Narayani Shakti Jagata Janani Et Se Sabahoy Yache Vaishnava Grihini. All the energies of Narayani, Narayani is a name for Radharani, the mother of the universe, have appeared as the wives of the Vaishnavas. And here's Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's commentary. He says, the women of this world are bodily expansions of Narayani's energies. In other words, a devotee should see all the ladies in this world as being something, as representatives of Srimati Radharani. It's something very practical thing for us to meditate upon. And I'd like to show you some verses from Manasanhita in this regard also. This is something we printed in Krishna Katamrita Bindu. Krishna Kun, would you like to read the Sanskrit and the English again?
Yathanayastu pujante ramante tatra devataha yatraitastu na pujante sarvastatra phala kriyaha. Where women are honored, there the gods are pleased, but where they are not honored, no sacred rite yields rewards.
That's a very heavy statement.
It
You know,
is.
there's yin and there's yang, and we can't separate the female energy from the male energy. You can't separate Radharani from Krishna. And therefore, that verse we were reading in the very beginning, Vina Radha Prasadina Mat Prasadana Vidya, that Krishna says that without the mercy of Radha, you can't get me. And therefore, we want to always remember Radha and Krishna together. If we try to separate them, if we don't give proper respect to women as the representatives of Srimati Radharani, representatives not like they're non-different, but we give them respect. If we don't do that, then whatever yagyas that we do, they don't give a proper result. And that's a big subject matter, but it's going on today. Krishna Kun, go ahead.
Shochanti jamayo yatra vinashyat yashu tatkulam na shochanti tu yatraita vadhate tadhi sarvada. Where the female relations live in grief, the family soon perishes. Where they are happy, that family prospers.
And that family also refers, it's Kulam, but there's also the Vaishnava Kula, there's also the Vaishnava Sangha. If we don't, if the ladies and that are not happy, then that line's not going to go on. Go ahead, Krishna Kun.
Jamayoyani gehani shapantya pujitaha tani krityaha taniva vinashyanti samantataha. Those houses in which female relations are not duly honored are cursed and perish as if destroyed by magic.
Okay, and the last one. So the conclusion then is, and go ahead.
Tasmadeta sada puja bhushana chadana shanai bhuti kamai narai nityam satkare shutsave shucha. Hence, men who seek their own welfare should always honor women on holidays and festivals with gifts of ornaments, clothes, and dainty food.
And that's a tradition we see in the villages and things that they give saris to the ladies on the festivals. They give them sweets. There's ornaments given and things, especially to the daughters, to the wife. And that's not just a social ritual, although it may be perverted into that today. It may be degraded into that today, but it comes from this original conception that we're hearing from Narada Pancharatra, that adosamuchayad Radha paschad Krishnam chamadabam. The first we worship Radharani, then we worship Krishna. And as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is describing in Chaitanya Bhagavat, we should see all the women in this world as expansions of Krishna. Excuse me, all the women as expansions of Srimati Radharani. And we should always considered keeping Radha and Krishna together. Always keeping Radha and Krishna together means also Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that's a subject matter we just touched on a tiny little bit. We could also go in many different directions from these verses today. It's just, you could have a seminar on this one verse and for a few weeks or something and go on and on about it. So many nice subject matters and stories and songs and different things that we could go over. But I think I'm going to go ahead and stop there now. I just looking here for, I want to go over this verse again here. Getting Nityananda. There it is. Vinaradha prasadena mat prasado navidyate. Vinarada prasadena Krishna prapti navjayate, excuse me. Tatashi radhika Krishna samadhanayo susamyuto. That if we don't please Radharani, we can't get Krishna. It's just half an egg. It's half, it's not full, it's not complete. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Purnamidam. He's complete as because he's Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. He's Radha and Krishna together. He's Nomi Krishna Surupam. He's Krishna himself, but Radha Bhava Duty. It's not that the Radha and Krishna just melted together in this one form, although that's also described sometimes. But then we hear the Gadadhar Pandit is Radharani, and it becomes very confusing. But Gadadhar Pandit, who appeared on the Amavasya day, and the Amavasya means the dark moon, that day when there's no qualities, it said that Gadadhar Pandit is what's left after Krishna's taken Radharani's bhav. So in particular, when we say that Radha and Krishna become one as Mahaprabhu, they become one because Krishna's taken the mood of Srimati Radharani. So let's look at this verse again, and then we'll go ahead and stop. Radhika prayasi bhara bhame dike manohar kanaka keshara kanti dare anurage rakta sadi nila pata manohari manimoya abharana pari. Golden complexion Sri Radha is the topmost and dearmost. She's most enchanting and seated on the left of Sri Krishna. She wears a red sari out of intense attachment and puts a blue shawl on top of that sari. She's beautifully decorated with jeweled ornaments. Jai Srila Narottam Das Thakur ki jai. So does anybody have any questions or comments, discussions or anything? These topics, by the way, I mean, what do you ask about that? Well, is Radharani's necklace, is it made out of solid gold, or is it made out of jewels? Sometimes these things don't seem so relevant for us, but some of these topics I want to go over. I want to just read something about it. I want to hear something about it. As Srila Bhaktisiddhanta once said at Radha Kund, he said, "You're not qualified to hear these things." He said, but we should understand what is our goal. And he said, if you don't understand the goal, then you may think that just becoming free from anarthas, that anartha nibriti is the goal. That's not our goal. Our goal is artha prabriti. We want something positive. And as my Guru Maharaj sometimes said to us, he said, you just hear this. You're not qualified for this, but you just hear it. And as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, you should know such a thing exists. So we should honor that, and Srila Prabhupada gave us Chaitanya Charitamrita and gave us teachings of Lord Chaitanya. We should hear that thing and try to understand it, but that understanding will come. Raja Vidya, it's the topmost knowledge. Raja Guyam, the most confidential thing. Pratyak Savagamam Dharmyam. It'll come with realization, and that realization comes from the holy name. Okay, anybody have any comments or questions or anything? Ratna Prabhu? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu. Prabhu, I have one question. Is Radharani always wears sari or a gopi skirt or sort of thing?
That's a really controversial subject.
Because so many places I heard that, yes, bro.
In the Puranas, I've not. I think actually someone did come across with finding the word sari in one of them. But more often that's described as a later Bengali kind of thing. And it's not really clear. In the 10th canto, in the prayers of Lord Brahma, it's described there that Putana, she got something, a better kind of liberation than her two brothers, Bakasura and Agasura, got. And what is the reason? And Acharyas explained, because Putana dressed like a devotee. Now, exactly what that dress was, it doesn't say. It could have been a skirt. My speculation is, based on what Bhaktivinoda Thakur says and Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur and other places, is that she was wearing tilak, because tilak is the main thing. And in some places it's a skirt. In some places in South India, they have a kacha. You know what a kacha is? Kacha is like the tail in a dhoti. And you see the ladies in South India, sometimes they wrap their sari, they have a very long sari, and they have a kacha on their dhoti, on their saris. In other places they wear them in other different ways, or they wear skirts or other different things. So I don't know. Maybe somebody else here has some comments about that. Achyuta Prabhu, you have any thoughts about that? You're a South Indian expert.
No, Prabhu, I don't have any comments about that. But I have a question, Prabhu. Is it okay to ask?
You don't wear saris, Achyuta Prabhu?
We use normal saris.
You don't wear yourself.
No.
Okay, good. Go
I
ahead.
have a question, Prabhu. Can I ask now?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. We have seen Srila Prabhupada installed so many deities around the world, and also his disciples, followers are installing all over the world. They are giving the names like Radha Krishna, Radha Govinda. Very few temples they have like Gandharvika, Giridhari, Kishora, Kishori. So why all the acaryas they are emphasizing Sri Radha's name, only the Radha? They are not using any other names. Is there any tattva behind it?
I haven't heard any commentary on that, but we can certainly comment that in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, it's described there that one should chant the name of the Lord that's dear to one, because this chanting should come deep from the heart. And so what comes immediately to my mind when you ask that question is that the name Radha is so very dear to so many devotees. And sometimes Gandharvika Giridhari or Kishore Kishori, like you said, that's their... Kishore Kishori is an interesting... It was actually Kishori Kishore, we would normally say, according to this verse. But Prabhupada named the deities in Chicago Kishore Kishori. Maybe it sounds better. That's another subject. I'm not sure why he put Krishna's name before Radharani's name. Usually that's not done. But otherwise, that's the only answer I can think of, Prabhu. The name of Radha is so very dear to the devotees, and that's why they did that. Krishna Kun, do you have some comment about that or something else?
I was actually just marking that in the Mangala Arati of the Gopis, it was also in the opposite order, Kishore Kishori. And I was just surprised and noting that this is not unique to Prabhupada only. It seems like this is how they use it, some of our acharyas also.
You know, that might be there too, because it's a fascinating thing to me when we study bhajan, especially study the bhajan of the gopis. They're not doing it for their own sake. They're doing it to please Radharani. And so Radharani really likes to hear about Krishna. And so perhaps Radharani likes hearing Krishna put first. That's what comes to my mind after your comment. Thank you. Anything from anybody else? Orsi, you have something you want to share?
Yes, thank you, Hare Krishna, my pranams. I have a question, what I was thinking many times, and I think it's the right moment to ask about that. We heard about the gopis when Krishna left Vrindavan. They couldn't hold their feelings back anymore, so that became visible. And I don't know where, somewhere it was mentioned as it were talking by the gopis that they are living in the forest. And I was thinking that how their social acceptance were after Krishna left. So, because it seemingly when they went to Kurukshetra, that they were accepted. So it's not like that they become rejected by the society. But I was thinking that is there any information on this?
Yeah, the Bhagavatam, the 10th canto, describes it that the gopis are always, the word gopi by itself means to hide something. The word comes from the same Bhuj Dhatu as Gupta, to hide or hidden. The gopis, gopi means a person who tries to hide something. So they're always hiding their love. But when Krishna was on the chariot with Akrura, the gopis gave that up. They gave up all pretense and they started throwing himself in front of the chariot and trying to stop the chariot. And he said, no, no, you don't go, don't go. And they just didn't care what their superiors and other people see them doing that or not. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Sarita Darshini, in one purport in the 46th or 47th chapter, I think it is, of the 10th canto, he explains that Krishna wanted to show the love of the gopis, but nobody knew about that. So to show the love of the gopis, he said, their love is Madanaki Mahabhav, it's the topmost ecstasy, and that Madanaki Mahabhav is golden colored. If you want to show the purity of gold, you apply heat. And then the gold melts, and then you can see if there's some other alloys or something in it. You can see how pure it is. So Krishna wanted to show the purity of the gopis' love, to glorify them. And so he had to melt their hearts, their golden-like hearts. And he did that with the heat known as Vipralamba Agni, or the fire of separation. And by so doing, then everybody got to hear about the gopis. And then later heard more about them going to Kurukshetra and that. That was Krishna's desire, to give us the gopis. But still then people didn't really understand the gopis and what the gopis mean until Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came. And therefore Basu Ghosh sings that song we're repeating a few lines of Jari Gordana Hoito, that unless Mahaprabhu had come, how would we know about the gopis? Is that okay, Arsi? Is that helpful?
Yes. Does it mean that actually after, if we're talking about the gopis and not Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in this case, however, the two of them is closely connected, does it mean that they were actually understood by the others? So, or it still happened that their feeling just came out? And maybe could anyone understood what was happened?
Who can understand? Even Krishna himself can't understand. And the only way
Yes.
for Krishna himself to understand, Pratyatu Sadhana, he had to take on their behavior of the gopis. Otherwise, he couldn't understand it. Or the purpose of our sampradaya is to try to understand that, is to try to assist Krishna, who's trying to understand the mood of the gopis, and Radha in the Gambhira, and Srup Damodar Goswami and Roy Ramananda are singing songs and describing these things so that Krishna could try to understand that. And so we're
Mm-hmm.
also we're trying to assist that thing. So yes and no. People understood something. You know, we can understand someone can say, or she's a professor, or she's a Hare Krishna, or this or that, but they don't really know your heart. Those are just some external designations. And so in a similar way, it's very, you can say the gopis were feeling separation. That's okay. But what were their deep feelings? And Rupa Goswami's expressed that in Ujjwal Nilamani, in Govinda Lilamrita, in Lalita Madhav, that Radharani went to commit suicide because she didn't want to live anymore. We hear that from Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami and Chaitanya Charitamrita, that Mahaprabhu wanted to commit suicide. I can't live without Krishna. What's the purpose of this life? So it's not, you can say, yes, people understood, it became a little famous, but they didn't really understand any more than someone can say, wow, have you been to Disneyland? Well, yeah, I went to Disneyland. Well, do you really understand Disneyland? People go to Disneyland and they ride on the rides and they see this thing, but they don't see the thousands of people behind the scenes who are painting the rides and making things work and making the voices and do all these different things. They just see something external. So
Mm-hmm.
Bhajan, we want to go internal. We want to understand this mood of the gopis. And
So even they become famous, let's say, when they were talking about that now they are living in the forest. It's actually not a fact, but it's out of their mood of sulkiness, let's say.
living in the forest, Radharani was living in Javat, and the different gopis were living in different villages around Javat, and they were interacting with their so-called husbands and relatives and things like that. But living in the forest means they were living there with their hearts. They were living there with their minds, and they were going and spending time in the forest with Krishna and later searching for Krishna. That's one reason why they were doing Katyayani Brata, going in the forest, because they wanted to find Krishna, they wanted to meditate on Krishna, they wanted to be alone. So in the forest, it means also a place of solitude, a place of focus. I just got a book today. Hold on one second. I'll tell you the book. Interesting book. I don't usually get these kind of books. This is a book about work. It written for businessmen, but it's a very interesting book. It's called Deep Work. And the whole point of the book, and he writes so many interesting things about different famous writers and thinkers in the world and how historically they secluded themselves. Like Mark Twain, he had a separate house that when he was writing his literatures, he would go to that house and he wouldn't see anybody. When the family wanted to call him to the meals, they had to blow a horn to call him to the meal. And so his point is that we have so many distractions and things, we need to really, really be focused. So it's a point which is spoken about so much, of course, in the Gita and also our different literatures, our Gaudiya literatures. We have to be akantic, we have to be really one-pointed. If we want to go deeper, if we want to realize something of that other person, want to realize something of Radha Krishna. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you very much.
You all right, Orsi? Keeping warm?
Yes, still.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Gornitai Prabhu, I'm sorry your arm must be tired holding it up so long. Nice to see you, Prabhu.
Hare
Yes.
Krishna. It's not my hand, it's like my alternate hand, like a avatar hand. So for this question of Mataji, Orshi Mataji, or sorry, because I see the Orshi here and the initiative name is different. So I also would like to put something because all the pastimes of Vrindavan are like a big drama, like a dramatic performance. And we can understand a little bit about all these dynamics when we study drama performance. There are very great books like Nata Shastra and others in modern books also, when there is a, how to say, not, not so simple drama is going on like Shakespeare and others. We have to understand that complex personalities are relating to each other and different situations shows only their one face, another face, another face. And then, interestingly, when there is a good drama is going on, you see on the dresses also the actors are redressing themselves for the different mood, for different situations, and that shows for the expert, oh, what will happen? No, oh, he's wearing some gray or black dress. Oh, that would be some dramatic action will come, or some tragedy. Or then where the word is very light dress. Oh, there is a humorous act will come up. So the dresses, the moods, are so many variations in the mundane drama. So we can imagine that in Vrindavan, when much more, perfect persons and very complex persons are there, like we can see in the Ujjwal Nilamani that Sri Krishna have four different personalities which are contradictory, but they are there, they are present in different situations. He shows differently, but other gopis, gopas, everyone have to understand and have to react. So it's all this very complex situation. And also in Vrindavan is under the guidance of Yogamaya, who can provide so many wonderful things like extra gopis. And when the gopis have to be, two places together, like the family members don't have to understand, then the gopis are went out. Then Yogamaya providing another set of gopis who stay at home, and the original gopis goes to the forest, and then we can see they are living in the forest. So complex, and
Yeah.
yes, very complex. And then what we can understand only by our heart, which we get from our previous acharyas, from our gurus, only from the heart of these persons can understand something. Studying, reading is just, showing our desire. But what we understand when we get their blessings, and that's the revelation, that's we can understand what happens a little bit according to our desire, according to our level of understanding. So that's my little point.
That's a great comment. Thank you so much. Just to touch on that too, yeah. Padile Shanile Kabu Krishna Prapti Noi Bhajile Vishuddha Bhavi Tabi Krishna Pai. Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote in Sajjana Toshini. Interesting verse. I came across that in the Bengali. That verse I've not found anywhere else. And it was in Sajjana Toshini. It appears in a prose article, but all of a sudden there's this verse, and it seems that this is a verse that he wrote, that Padile Shanili Kabu Krishna Prapti Noi, that you don't get Krishna just by hearing class or just by reading something. Padile means to read or to hear. Padile Shunili, hearing a reading. Padile Shunili Kabu Krishna Prapti. Bhajile Vishuddha Bhavi Tabi Krishna Pai. But it comes when we're doing bhajan and Vishuddha Bhav, when we have a pure heart that comes. But of course, that's a complex subject. That bhajan means also reading. Prabhupada wanted the devotees to regularly read. And if we read in the mood of service, if we hear in the mood of service, then it purifies our heart. Shusho, Shuddhadana Shah, Vasudeva Kata Ruchi. We get some Kata Ruchi by the Mahat Seva of hearing, which is the best type of seva. So both can be said. But to support your point, it was a very important point. When we have people who are just hearing in a mechanical way, or even to impress people, or to collect information, this or that, it doesn't work the same. We should do it as a service for our Guru Janas, Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much. That's great. Okay, I'd like to stop there. It's a little late. Still have a few rounds left to chant and things. So nice to be back again with everybody. And I'm hoping to do this again next Thursday. Gauni Thai Prabhu, I'm just throw this out real quick. We're looking for someone who may be going from India to Hungary. If you know any, you're more in touch. There's a few devotees from Hungary there. I think Maharani's there right now in Mayapur, but she's not leaving for a while, right?
No.
Anyway, if you...
I already, someone asked me, maybe because of you, but I don't know anyone at the present moment who is in a few months will go.
I'm just putting it in the ether.
Yeah.
If somebody
Sure,
wants to do
sure,
some
sure.
someone's
I
going.
will inform you.
Yeah, please let me know. Okay, thank you all very much. Srila Narottam Das Thakur ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo, Vancha Kalpatarubhischa, Kripa Sindhu Bhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nanda Kori Vaishnava.